Good morning, it's Vaughan at westcoatbellpottery.ca in Nova Scotia, Canada. This is part of the videos I'm doing on becoming a potter. And it's 10 videos long, so it's pretty compressed. But if you follow the stages through, I think you have a good chance of getting to a show, a little market somewhere, and actually making a little bit of money from what you have always considered maybe just your hobby. It's a big jump when people do that because there's a lot of psychological hurdles as well as physical hurdles that you have to cross. But it's not something that's, I think it's pretty easy to make the leap. You need to not be too shy. But today I want to show you how to diversify a little bit, because we've been doing mugs, cylinders, bowls, soup, dessert, whatever you want to use them for, plates, narrowing forms, so bud vases, lotion pump dispensers, and ship's mugs. That's a narrow form as well, and plates and platters. It's now time to do something with a little bit of hand building, because when you look at a person's display, it's nice to see some diversity in it. Thrown things are very hard to do, so people appreciate that, I think, especially if they've tried it. But I want you to just diversify a little bit, have something different. So I'm just going to show you quickly how to do some little hand-built trays that won't take long. They're pretty quick, but you can do it without spending any money on materials. Well, you've got clay, of course, but you can use some molds that you can make yourselves. So I had a delivery recently, and everything that gets shipped these days comes with packing material around it, and there's a lot of stuff that's useful. So I don't throw anything away pretty much in my packing stuff. It either gets reused for sending out another piece, bubble wrap, peanuts, and all that kind of stuff can be used many times. But this comes sometimes. And this is very, sort of salvageable, and you can do a lot with it. It can be just used the way it is, as a little slump mold, layer clay slab over the top. But with a tiny bit of sanding, you can knock off the edges all the way around, knock off the corner just here, and you end up with a mold that's got a little bit of more ease for the clay to go over it. You can also cut it up and make lots of molds. It cuts with an X-Acto knife. Basically, it's very easy. Just run it through, and you've got a big split. Okay. Then you cut through a few times, you cut all the way through. You've got yourself, many molds. This one, I did sand the edges a little bit. I have a little belt sander that I can do quickly, but you could just take sandpaper and do this outside, of course, because this is dangerous. I wore a mask while I was doing this, and run a filter. But basically, you can make many molds with this stuff. So I have all shapes, and often when you're working in the studio, you can actually use these just with scraps of clay. So keep a bunch of these around, and if you don't have any packing material being delivered, just go to Joanne Fabrics. They sell foam for packing cushions and upholstery, and you can get it there, but you can also get it at the hardware store, because the insulation industry uses a lot of foam, and they often have little offcuts, and if you know a builder, you probably get it for free from the builder as well. Some of the most interesting evenings or afternoons are when you go to a hardware store and you just walk around and look at what you can find in there that you can use, and especially if you've got one of those surplus places. I remember in New York, P&T Surplus was in Rosendale, and that's where I got all my little bats that I've been throwing on for 20 odd years now, and they were $1 a piece. But anyway, think when you're in a hardware store, what can I reuse that for? A different repurposing. But anyway, I'm going to show you how to do this. Okay, talking about repurposing, this was really good find. Our local hardware store, True Value Hardwares, I think they're called, or actually I'm not sure, Beauty Tone, doesn't say on here, but I got them from the local hardware store, and they're really neat sticks meant for stirring 5-gallon buckets of paint. Obviously, because this is too much, this is overkill for a 1-gallon bucket, but what great sticks to use for slab rolling. So I have a slab roller, and I don't need to use these, but I'm going to just re-go over this piece of plastic, 2 sticks at about a 1/4 inch thickness either side, and then you simply, when you roll a slab, you go backwards and forwards. And because this is a smooth piece of plastic, the rolling pin is clean. And if you had a rolling pin with textures on it, you'd actually have a texture pre-made onto the slab. But you don't have to worry about that because we're trying to do things that don't cost any money. So when you've made your money at the first craft fair, you can buy yourself tools. At first, you're not going to have a lot of money to spend on tools, so you can find thrift store things that you can roll in your clay. And I'm going to just show you one, but I have this I got from the fabric store. This was from Joanne Fabrics, I think, and it's that rubber lining that you put underneath rugs and carpets in your living rooms on wood floors to stop them sliding. The same with this. This is to stop things sliding, and they make really good textures. This is at the hardware store for smudging walls to get textures down your walls. The simplest one is to take a little fabric doily and kind of spread it out carefully. Sometimes they get wrinkles, so you got to be careful not to do that. I got this, I think it cost me $1 at a little garage sale, yard sale thing. And no, this is not new, but everybody does this. So that's how to get a texture very quickly. I've got some seagulls and some pigeons outside. And then we don't know what size this is going to be. Do I have one of these? So it'll fit, that will fit, so that's fine. Yeah, I guess I don't need to texture any more of it because that will fit perfectly anyway. So we would take this off because that's our texture. And you can randomly cut this because it doesn't have to be cut to the size of this. It could be a gentle kind of mold that will relax over a little bit. And I'm just deciding, I think what I will do is cut it. So I'm going to cut a little bit of this off. I guess the seagulls are making a lot of noise this morning. It's beautiful outside. We haven't had rain for a week now. We're just hoping we don't repeat last year where we got into a drought early and then had forest fires. So we got a little bit of the clay off just to make it a bit easier to manipulate. Slip your hand underneath, flip it over. You can pull your plastic off at this point. And then what I do is I put another little riser on there, and then sit it on. And you can tap gently. You don't want to tap too hard because the clay might stick to the mold. And I'm just going to let that sit there for a little while. Okay, I just rolled out another one of these. I rolled it a little bigger, so I didn't use my stick, so I'm just using my eye as a guide for thickness. And still working on the principle of texture with that doesn't cost you anything. This is one of the wooden ribs that comes in the kits that people buy these days, and I just took this with a little grindstone and ground in multiple edges so that we can actually get like lines by dragging this across. You need to wet the edge to actually get those to drag through evenly, but you can simply go and drag your piece through. And that's a quick texture that you can get without spending any money. Let's try one of these. This is that wallpaper. I think it's wallpaper or paint, or for texturing mud on walls. But you can simply this is very soft clay. It's fresh out of the bag. You can make stamps, and these are just what we've made over. There's a cat face and there's a fish, and you just model and sculpt these to your heart's content. Make as many as you want, and so we can make stamps that you can press in. If the clay is a bit soft, it starts to stick to the stamps, so it's a good idea to have a few stamps available that you can let a few dry out every so often. And then sometimes you might have to go over it and push in any clay that lifted up and made any sharp little edges at the edge of the stamp, especially when the clay is this soft. But anyway, these are stamps that Jackie and I have made over the years, and there's lots of them, so you never know when you're going to need something, and we just make them. We went through a phase where we were doing just like herringbone patterns, but and then there was a really very detailed one there, and same on that side. So just have fun, make yourself some stamps. They're actually cost you nothing but like 10 cents worth of clay and all that. So I really want it to be even because we're going to make a tile. So I used the 2 sticks either side. So the tile is the same thickness all the way across. Now you can buy a tile cutter from the supply place, or you can cut yourself a piece of wood, and you can use mat board for this, but the mat board obviously won't last very long because it'll get wet, but a piece of cardboard will work for a few pieces, but if you want something you can come back to over and again, just get a piece of plywood, masonite or plywood, and cut a tile in wood, and then you can just simply use it as a template on the top to actually cut around. You can push it back if it does just by doing that. But there you got a tile. And you could, if you're really good at drawing, painting, whatever, you can put something on it. But if you have some nice interesting stamps, like I showed you, that you can start making for yourself, you could find one that you really like and just make a pattern. We use the fish, so I don't want to use that again. Here's a little flower. So this could be in there. You could put the leaves. Oh, that's a different leaf, so maybe we'll get away with it this time. Here you go. So we have a nice little pattern in a tile, and if you glaze that nicely with some nice colored glazes, you know you've got yourself something that is a coaster that somebody will maybe spend 20 bucks on. And of course it all depends on the textures you put in, or you could carve each tile and get $50 for them. So we're going to lift it up. It's stuck to the plastic. Remember, when you don't peel them off, a tile will stay stuck to the plastic till you peel the plastic off. And then you peel very carefully, because if you get folds or creases, you can actually tear the clay. You simply peel it off like that. That's the back of your tile, remember? And it's a good idea just to kind of straighten them up. Now people ask me, how do my tiles stay so flat? I put weights on them while they're drying. There you go. So all the edges have got weights on for the duration of the drying, and I will flip these upside down probably either in about 6 to 8 hours or tomorrow morning. Okay, so I have just rolled out a big slab, and now I'm going to be efficient about this, because doing one at a time is great if you've just got a scrap of clay. But if you wanted to do a run of little tiny trays for just jam, jelly, ring holders, earring finders, just things that you can use, you make one big slab, and then you take multiples of these and place them on the slab. So I can get a square tray, another square tray, and then I could get, let's see if I can get 2 out of this last bit here. Now I think I'm just going to get 1, but you see the idea is I'm trying to see how many of these I can get out of, that's too big, yep. Maybe I can get the small one, almost. But anyway, it's a touch bigger slab. I'd be able to get multiples of these, and then just have a tiny rim that lifts up around them. I could always move these over a bit, because we don't need much of a hangover on these pieces. Actually, that one could always go that way, and maybe this one could too. Yeah, there you go. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little trays that I'll get out of this slab, but I'm going to wait and let them dry out for the next couple of hours. Okay, and this is now 1.5 hours, 2 hours later, and this clay has been settling, stiffening up. So I'm lightly just paddling it down a little bit more vertical. Keep it turning, keep paddling. You don't want to over paddle to stick it to that little styrofoam mold. And then before I turn it the right way up, just give it a quick sponge. Don't get it too wet, because we spent all afternoon waiting for it to get dry. And you can even just take the moisture off again. With a metal scraper rib. So these pieces are very quick to do. And then when I turn them the right way up, we've got a little piece of duct tape underneath holding it. Place that on there. Get your little bat. This is a Lazy Susan, and then flip it the right way up. Take this out, and then take a look and decide if you want to trim down any more of the walls of the piece, because I noticed that when I put it on there, this side is taller than any of those, and I'm thinking, does that matter? Well, I'm going to say yes. I think I need just to take a little bit extra off here. That looks a bit better. Then when you're happy, you just sponge the rim. Get rid of any nasty marks. There's a little mark on it there. Sponging backwards and forwards gets rid of it. There's a lot you could do with the rim. There's another one here. Just press with your finger, that'll rub the clay in. You can even just paddle it up a little bit while it's this way. This will stick to the clay after it's got a little damp though, so flip it over. And you have a little tray. I'm not happy about it, so it's still a bit uneven on that side. Do I want to fiddle with it, play with it? Because these are supposed to be fairly quick pieces. But still, you don't want to put something out there that's a bit shoddy. See how it just seems to rise up? So I'm going to go for it. He agrees with me. There you go. It's the first beautiful spring day so far this spring, so I guess the gulls are all out. We haven't had rain in 5, 6, 7 days now. That's a little better. There's nothing to stop you even being a little creative with your rim. And this is just like you do a lip on a jug. You can thin the rim out a little bit with a roller before you actually put it on the mold. But you got to be careful you don't make them too thin because they'll chip easily. But we're trying to make a few pieces that are not thrown, so your booth or your little display at a market will have a few more diverse pieces in it. Just brush back and forwards. That makes the rim a little bit more interesting. I could tip it over so you can see a little bit. Okay, and it all depends on how you want to glaze this now, but you've got a lot of texture in that to accept the glaze. Now here are some other little tiny trays done the same way. Okay, with textures pressed in and some hand carving and that, but these are all the same type of trays. Now here's a mold made from foam that you get to insulate houses. So this is just cut on a bandsaw to get the edges. It needs a bit of sanding, it's not finished yet. It's a basic mold, but I'll try doing one over this. This is our little fish mold. Sorry, this is our fish slab. So I'm going to place that over. Let's have a quick look at this to make sure we're centered. Yep, that looks fairly centered. So we can flip it over. Put it on the wheel, and then we paddle. Now this clay has been stiffening up for 2 hours minimum, so it's not super soft now, and if it was soft I would put a piece of cling film between it and the mold. I mean, that's saran wrap I call that. I'm not sure if it's cling film here when in the country where you live, but saran wrap or cling film to make sure that it doesn't stick to the mold. Keep turning the wooden bat over. Same again, just to make sure it's smooth. Do the side a little bit. Then a piece of paper. Just to make sure it doesn't stick to the back. Place this on. Now it should not collapse because this clay has been stiffening, but if it looks like it's flopping down, I'm going to turn it upside down again. And lift this out. If it was sticky, this would have stuck in there, so you'd have to use the saran wrap. And then you can decide how you want to cut your rim, but I'm going to sort of go for a fairly low rim on this. Now you can use a ruler. Clay wants to re-stick down every time I do that. Okay, and then get your sponge. There's a little bit left on there. Fiddling often makes something worse, remember that in life. Potting, sometimes you get this kind of little mark or something, you try and get rid of it, it makes it worse. So you've got to judge carefully. If you're going to touch the clay, what's it going to do? And is it going to make your mark even worse? This, what I'm talking about there, this stamp had just come off there. I'm just going to leave it. And then I'm going to push this up a little bit. Just to increase the height of that, just a touch. So this would be a good tray to glaze in blues because it's got fish swimming around everywhere. Okay, this is another mold that's from styrofoam that was insulation for a house. And I saw, there's a bunch of this been thrown away, so I picked it up and just cut it and sanded down the edges. So this will fit nicely inside this piece of clay, which is rolled out. So these are free molds. And then you got to decide what you want to do to texture something. So I'm going to now use, we've been talking about using stamps that you can make yourself, things that don't cost anything. These I bought on Amazon. They're little rollers. Let's put the light on so you can maybe see them. These are Amazon, and I got a bunch of these. So you can actually, I thought these were cheap on Amazon anyway. So basically you can roll to create texture. This is how I do my fish. If you want to see how to make fish, because they're pretty quick to make in a display, you could do that. I suppose we could do down the side here too. Not sure how much of this is going to show up in the molded pot. Alright, so we got some texture, very quick, worth an investment in things like this. Even if you're not going to be doing pottery for a business, these are fun to have just to play with. Oh, I don't know why there's the other one. There's the bubble one. Okay, so we know it's not going to stick to the mold. So we can flip this over because the clay is fairly dry. Take the paper off now. It's nice to lift it up. A roll of duct tape is really good to have around the studio. And then, once again, paddle. Lots of little taps rather than big ones. And
sometimes if you put a little back pressure on that corner as you're coming towards, put your fingers there, it'll help it go down a bit more. The clay is sort of getting a waviness to it, which doesn't hurt, but there we go. And you know, we can smooth out a little bit. I don't think you can just use your thumb. I might got some fingerprints in there from handling it, but you can just use your thumb to smooth that out. Boy, your skin gets dry doing clay though. Putting a lot of cream on these days. Alright, so we got a waviness. Now should I cut it before I take it? Because it might be nice just to cut it while it's upside down. And like I said, you could hold a ruler onto the piece and just cut along a ruler, but I kind of like the freehand way of doing it. So I'm going to stick this in and I'm going to try to judge just how far down, and hopefully it's going to be even all the way around. So now we can just kind of make sure it's not too bad. There's a little waviness in it, but I'm going to sponge it on the underside first before I flip it up. So what I'm guessing, these things take me, I would guess 10 minutes to make one. So you can make, you've got a little event coming up and you can make 10, 20 of these easily in 2 or 3 hours. Just sponge it smooth. Different sizes, different patterns, different textures. And let's put it the right way up again. Should not be stuck, let's hope. Well, it's definitely not falling off on its own, so I've got to manipulate it. If in doubt, use cling film or saran wrap. And then you just sponge the sides, because you'll have that sharp cut kind of thing that you did. You can use a roller over the edge if you want to. I have like texture rollers I use. Oops. But I'm going to try to get this a little bit more even now. Work, I would say, to do something like that. And glazing it might take longer than making it. There you go, that's what it looks like. This was our big tray, sorry, big slab of clay. So I am simply going to play with nothing. It's like doing a big abstract painting here. So we got, this one's going to be the end. Let's see, we can do another square one here. We were trying to get as many as we could out of the piece. Okay, so we basically got 5 trays out of 1 slab. So now we're going to try and cut it carefully. So this is going to be our first one, so I'm going to try and replicate the distance from that on that side over here. And the same over here. And the same over here. So the idea behind this little this demo is how to make something faster, quickly. And then we've got to lift this up. The clay is stiffened a little bit now, remember? So we can lift it up, make sure it's still straight, turn it over. So we got that. The bottom of these is a little, not horrible, but could be smoother. There you go. These should lift out easily enough. Yep. So there's your cheap mold that you made yourself from scrap stuff you found in an Amazon box when it was delivered, that you made pottery from. And when you sell a bunch of those at a show, you can buy yourself some expensive molds if you want to, or you could continue just to make your own. I have 50 of these styrofoam shapes around the place probably, and they were all free. Just a little tiny square dish to put your sushi on, maybe.
This is what I have left from all the stuff that I've been doing on these odd little things. So I am now going to just wet this down, spraying it and wedge it back together as a ball of clay. And then I'm going to make a fish because I don't waste anything. We just need to use this up. It's still softish, but I'm just going to dampen it and wedge it. Okay, so we have a scrap of clay left. So if you don't want to waste your clay, which is what I don't, so you use every bit, and making fish is a really easy thing to do and pretty simple to draw. And if you get yourself a few texture tools, it's easy to make them look really nice. So if you're looking to diversify in your booth to, maybe attract some people who don't want a functional piece of pottery like a mug or a bowl, but just want something to pin on the wall of their house, these fish are actually a pretty good thing to make. So you sketch it out and then you cut it out. I think these take me about 10 minutes, maybe 15. But that actually is deceptive because it will take you many more minutes to actually glaze it, wire it, put it in the kilns. If you're doing shows, to drive to the show, pack your pots to go to the show, unpack your pots at the show. If you're doing wholesale, you've got to take half the money for your piece and ship it out. So basically there's a lot of work in these pieces. It's not just the making of the piece, it's the other stuff, sweeping the floors of your studio and all the rest of it that takes time. People always say, well, how long does it make something? And you have to think, well, how many parts of the process do you want me to go into? There you go. Now I'm just going to smooth the edge a little bit. You can do this with a roller too, but your finger is a nice way to do it. So I'm going to start a little bit in because there's like a, if I show you here, I'll do it that way so you can see. There's an area that the fish sort of have that smooth little oval at the front. So now I'm going to use the bubbles. You can buy these on Amazon, they're rollers. You can make your own as well. You can make these out of clay. Bisfied clay will make a really nice roller.
takes time to carve them. There you go, so we got a nice texture in the middle. Now let's say we're going to have the actual fins. Just use a roller like this. You'll know how long this fish took because it's in real time. And then the fins at the back here. Oops, so stuck to the roller. The roller's getting wet. So we've got some fish there. Oh, let's put some more bubbles, I think. Maybe I need some bubbles at the very bottom here. There you go. Anywhere else? Nope, let's go. Then the lips generally stick out a little bit. You can actually stick some coils there to make the lips stick up, but if we're just trying to use up a scrap of clay, you may as well just do it as fast and simply as possible. And then you need an eye. Which you can stick on there, and then we need my spiral stamp. So we have a fish. Now if I want to, I could stick a little fin in the center area there. Just by cutting out, maybe thinning it at the back end there. It's on a dusty surface, but I probably should get a piece of paper under this to do this bit. And then it's going to go in sort of in that area there. Give it a little moisture so that it will stick easy. This is wedged clay, but oh, let's have a nice stamp. This is the one, it's a nice stamp to actually do fins. And you could always press a little more and then get your brush underneath, curve it up a little bit to give yourself some edges there. And you can kind of make some ripples in the fin too. We'll do that to the other one too. And then you can actually slide, if you're very careful and it hasn't got too wet yet, pull this towards the edge, pull the paper down. Can we still see here? Yeah. So if you're making all this effort to go to a little market, whether it's a little, I wouldn't go to flea markets, don't do that. But farmers markets are a good place to sell pottery. So, but you're going to make this effort to travel to a close or further away farmers market. Research them too, don't just, assume that something is good. If you've got specialty foods at a farmer's market, cheeses and other specialty jams and all that kind of stuff, you've probably got a clientele that would actually support pottery. And so you just have to kind of make a guess and judge it. But, just don't go blind to doing a market. I've lost my shirt at shows. In the old days, drive a long way and then, it just didn't work. And sometimes they would get wiped out by weather events too. So we had tornado at one show I did in Boston Mills in Cleveland, Ohio. It was still a good show that weekend, but weather affects shows. So look at the timestamp, 7 minutes 43 seconds. Wow. And we have a fish. Not bad, eh? So if you anticipate the time you're going to spend glazing this and firing it and putting it out of the kilns, and then basically, you know, the glazing takes quite a while. You're gonna probably end up with about half an hour in this fish, maybe. So, and then of course that doesn't count cleaning your studio, ordering supplies, electricity cost, all the rest of it. But I would sell this for about $49 to $59. And so, so I think that's a nice way to do it. So make about 6 of these an hour. Okay, this is the morning after we made all these little pieces yesterday. There's the 2 fish. And I only made one in the video, but I had enough clay in that, from clay that I opened yesterday, to make another one. So we've got a couple of fish. There's the tile still drying with the weights on the edges, and that will stay like that for about a week. There's one of the trays with a little doily pattern. And then we made all these little trays here. And there's a little set more there. So these are like little, what I call spontaneous purchases that people make. There's the big square fish one at the back there too, and there's 3 little ones. So, you know, I'm just trying to give you the idea that if you're going to spend some money, do a little market. Our local farmers market that's in Lunenburg, they only charge $10 for a table. So you've got to drive there and set up, and that takes a couple of hours. And then sit there for 3 or 4 hours, and then basically pack up and drive home. So you got minimal expense, but gas prices are getting higher. So you need to at least have some pieces that are sort of inexpensive, that you can actually sort of guarantee you're going to make a little bit of money and all that. Pricing them is going to be a different matter, but I try to make sure that I have something for everybody that comes into my booth at a little show that I'm doing, ranging from the pieces in the thousands to pieces that are $7, you know, little tiny trays that take me very little time to make. You've seen the texturing can go so quick. So if you've got something for $7, you have something a kid can afford. So so basically it's nice to, you know, make everybody happy. You know, the world needs happiness, all right? So basically, you know, and there's many other things you can do too. You know, just take a look on Pinterest or any of the sites, and you can see little dishes that you can throw in, you know, 30 seconds, make a little ring dish, and you can actually just glaze it nicely, or you could put a stencil down and put a different color slip over the top, and you've got a dish that you can sell for less than $10. You know. Okay, these are the little trays that we've been showing in this video, just to show you that it's nice to have some very affordable, pretty little items that I call spontaneous purchases. It's almost like candy at the grocery store, but you can really make them pretty and attractive with the glazing. Here's a little grouping that's right at our cash area where we make the sales. So you've got a few things that people, last minute gifts that they suddenly see when they're looking at the regular pieces. There's another little grouping of them. So they're very inexpensive. People can buy one just extra added onto what they're already buying.